I think this is helpful to show what areas where the two proposals are similar, and also areas where they're a little bit different in how the code under which this was submitted what it recommends. So let's just briefly go through this. The first one is transferable development rights. The advisory committee recommended that it only be in the town. Now in this chart, if it's not in the current code or current general plan highlighted in red, if it does comply with the zoning code or the general plan, it's emphasized in green. Currently, section 1632.02 of the county code allows for transferable rights to be in the town, but it doesn't restrict it, and the advisory committee says it's only to be in the town. Current ordinances allows it to be either in the town or in the county, so I've made note of that. For the rate at which transferable development rights occur, the advisory committee did not make a recommendation. The proposal in the Wallsburg overlay zone is 4 times, which is based on a recommendation on page 237 of the general plan. So those are the differences between the two as related to transferable development rights. Another issue was for the sending zones, would those areas be preserved permanently as open space? That was a recommendation by both the advisory committee and the Wallsburg overlay zone proposal. It's supported by the county code. Would the P160, I'm sorry,
would the water stay with those
it would have to if it's currently
so the irrigated
if
water.
it's currently irrigated, used for agriculture, it would have to stay. Another point was brought up, and you heard Doug's presentation. The P160 is a receiving zone. The advisory committee recommended that it not be a receiving zone. The Wallsburg overlay recommends that it does. And section 1632.02 of the county code allows P160 to be a receiving zone. So that's a difference. Both groups recommended clustering, which is also supported by the current county code. Density bonuses. The advisory committee recommended a 25% bonus in the P160 if development is clustered. The Wallsburg overlay zone proposes a kind of sliding scale between 0 and 65%. It gives bonuses for various items, providing trail, preserving open space, other community developments, or reserving sites for schools, parks, etc. You can see that both of these recommendations would actually require a change to the county code. The Wallsburg overlay zone is proposed to expand the planned performance development ordinance to allow for these density bonuses. Watershed and wildlife preservation is a recommendation from both groups. I know that's a big concern over there. There weren't any specific details in the advisory committee. Some of the details that were in the Wallsburg overlay was 80% open space would be required, the preservation of 4,932 acres on a no-build designation on the mountain. Now let me go through just a few others. Motorized and non-motorized access through open space is a priority for both. Those are both supported in various sections of the general plan and in the code. Now the next few that I want to go through are actually in the Wallsburg planning area section of the general plan. That section of the general plan recommends the creation of a special service district. The advisory committee did not mention that in the recommendation that is proposed in the Wallsburg overlay zone. Floodplain and waterway preservation is another element of the general plan. Again, no recommendation was given by the advisory committee. That is proposed in is one of the requirements in the overlay zone. However, I do think that the overlay or the advisory committee probably meant to include that in the watershed protection. Sometimes those are synonymous terms. Agricultural protection is also in the general plan. I didn't see any recommendations from the advisory committee about that. It is part of the overlay zone proposal. The second access from Highway 189 into Round Valley was recommended by both groups and is supported in the general plan. The general plan also recommends the dedication of school sites and a site for county recreation activities. That is recommended in the overlay zone. I didn't see a recommendation in the advisory committee. The reason that I emphasize the general plan so much is that when we look at zoning, the zoning code is based on the general plan. The proposed amendment that we've made has its roots in the general plan. It's based on the goals and the policies outlined in the general plan. So as we move forward, either with recommendations from the advisory committee or the overlay zone proposal, we hope that this commission, along with the county council, heavily weighs the recommendations that were in the general plan, along with considering the zoning codes that were in place when this was submitted. I also point this out that really, with the exception of how the P160 is to handle receiving zone and density bonuses, we're essentially recommending the same things. So as we move forward, if it moves forward, there will probably be quite a bit of discussion about what density bonuses should be considered, if at all. That's one difference. And then the other one would be the P160 receiving zone. Currently, the code allows it. Our proposal would anticipate using it. Their recommendation is to remove that from the county code. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Paul? How many homes were there, Paul, if there was nothing done? In the current zoning, the way it's zoned right now, without an overlay,
Okay.
so you have 160.
You know what? I have a slide that goes that mentions it. Doug, could you go to the second to last slide? It would be slide 8. So this was presented before.
Yeah, this is the one. We didn't get the copy of that.
So under the current zoning, there could be 94 units in the 8,000 acres that we have.
Yeah, that's what I have written down. We never got that from the last meeting.
Okay.
We never got that printed.
So 94 is the base. Our original application with the different transfers and bonus densities would have put 393 as the base and 570 is the max bonus. As we worked with staff and when we submitted our application in July 2015 to September, we reduced some of those density transfers and bonuses. That brought it down to 235 and 390.
Yeah, correct. That's what I read.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any questions?
Carol?
One comment. A lot of the things that you mentioned that the committees did not include was because they were already in the general plan.
And I understand that.
What they included were changes.
Changes to the general plan.
So the things that were already included in the general plan.
And I didn't mean that as a negative, I'm just that they didn't comment on it. But our proposal in trying to follow the general plan gave recommendations for each of those items.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
Question? How many homes are there
We
currently?
won't take any questions at this time. I'd like to hear from the committee that has been set up at Wallsburg this time. I don't know who your spokesman or if you appointed a spokesman, but I would like to hear from that advisory committee. Who's your spokesman? There's several here.
You say advisory committee, are you asking about the one that was appointed by the county council or the one that's sponsored?
Yes, the county council appointed advisory committee, and I didn't know if you had condensed everything or if each one of you had your own little part of that and how many there was of you. So it sounds like there were several, is that correct? So if we could hold that to a certain amount of minutes, don't want to be here all night. We would like to hear from that committee. And to me, that represents the people that are here. And so hopefully the committee can speak to the people that are here. And then, because we closed public comment in our last meeting, so we'd like to hear from the advisory board and what the comments are. And I don't care how you guys set it up. Whoever wants to come up first, then Let's start.
Wait, no. Nobody else stands up, I will.
Okay, Spencer Clark's be the first one, so state your name for the record. Take you.
Do I need to hold this?
Probably do, so
I got a loud voice, people say they can hear me anywhere.
all right. That's
Which is maybe not always a good thing. Yes, I'm Spencer Clark, I'm a resident of Wallsburg, and I have spent many hours involved in this in the last year. We have spent a lot of time, I spent most of my time on the land use committee, and we spent a lot of time working with the town and citizens of Wallsburg, which I think are represented well here. Not the 300 plus that we've been having at our meetings, but okay. I won't take much time because I saw your agenda. We spent a lot of time on land use. That was definitely our most heavily used item. And I would like to mention real quickly to the commission, because several of the members weren't here in November. A lot of Paul's presentation stated that how the overlay zone was congruent with the general plan. But if you will get a copy of Doug's report from last November, I believe there was more ways that he pointed out that it was not in harmony with the general plan than it was. But if you guys might haven't seen that because you weren't on the commission back then. But we went through a lot of meetings and we voted on it at the very end. The only part of this document that we didn't get to vote on as a group was the environmental. And I think we can do some work on it. One of the reasons we didn't propose, and it was mentioned up there that we didn't propose a special service district, is because we're hoping we don't need one. We're hoping the town will be the provider of water and sewer, and be the center of growth, and be the driver of the force there. And then we also think that it shouldn't, be the wastewater and density should be worked out between the county and the town, because that point comes up and should just be a guarantee if a small sewer system gets put in. Other than that, I'd love to answer questions. I would like to be brief if you have any.
Do you have any questions for Spencer? We may later. Thank you. Paul, you next, Eddie?
That's okay, you go.
Thank you, Commissioners. We appreciate the invite you gave us all tonight. I was a little surprised that the presenter got up and put so much time on the Wallsburg overlay zone. Our committee is basically left that alone. That was not part of our project to dissect this overlay zone. I would like to tell you that probably 90% vote would be against it. And he made a couple of presentations to you that I disagreed with. He said that in the Wallsburg zone there was a special service district discussed. There was a special service district discussed. It was very specific how it was discussed. And the thing about the Wallsburg overlay zone, there's very little bit of ground in the Wallsburg overlay zone that's going to be in the Wallsburg zone. There's one small piece that Mike Nelson owns, 40 down, 20, 30, maybe 50 acres, I don't know. All of it is in the South Hills zone. Well, where's the South Hills we're talking about? The special service district. The Wallsburg zone, when it talks about it, it's very specific. It says Wallsburg City and the area east, which is East Main Canyon Road, should have a special service district. It talks about the South Hills, the West Overlay Zone, in very specific sense. The infrastructure there is going to be too expensive. Therefore, Wasatch County should not participate any water, sewer, or roads. That's not telling you that they don't want a special service district there. I don't know what it is. So that's how they take the general plan. This whole plan is on the general plan. They take a sentence over here, and half a sentence over here, and put it together and tell you that it calls for a special service district in Wallsburg. Well, it does, but not the Wallsburg overlay zone. Never was, never should. The second part that I want to address quickly that he addressed was the planned performance zone. You'll see that it's a very specific special zone that's set up. Set up in 3 areas to start with. The first area was surrounding Heber City. There is surrounded Medway with it. Most areas have already been annexed into cities. So they basically don't exist anymore. The second area is the mountain zone, which kind of surrounds Timber Lakes out there. The reason they done that was so that we could go out there and put up some little special areas like the Girl Scout camp. Worked perfect. That mountain zone is it. This performance zone is perfect for it. The third area is way out south of Strawberry someplace. I don't know if it's out in the Wild Strawberry or where, somewhere's out there, a little area. And that's where this zone is coming in, so that they increase all this density. There's the only place in the zone they can, or that code they can do it, is through this planned performance. Nowhere should this ever be considered to be a planned performance. It's an amendment you'll have to vote on. I'm certain you'll say no to that so quick. You'll have to completely resubmit your whole plan. So just some points I want to make. All the time we're talking about they use the general plan all the time. We really tried to see where we can help the general plan. But you have staff that takes care of the general plan. Just about every meeting you have, Doug has some little thing he wants you to correct on the general plan, or on the zoning code. He keeps that up to date, and it's very difficult for us as a committee to try to tell you how to correct the code, because the code's a good code. We've lived over there for many years, we tend to keep living that. The only thing we want is these developers, when they come to town, is to live by it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions from Paul? Okay. Thanks, Paul. Boyd?
Boyd Whiting. I was asked to be on the Land Use Committee and the Transportation Committee, representing Wallsburg Town. I just have a couple of real short, simple comments. Through this whole process, the residents of Wallsburg are not trying to deny anyone any rights that they've ever had. We're not proposing that we take away any opportunities that have existed for 100 years in Wallsburg. All we're asking is that you honor our desire to help us keep Wallsburg fundamentally a quiet, peaceful little town, village. If the Wallsburg overlay zone is approved, it will fundamentally change and destroy Wallsburg as it exists. The sheer number of homes that they propose will outweigh the number of homes that already are in Wallsburg. Wallsburg will cease to exist the way it is. It'll become another, whatever, particularly Park City, whatever we have. Even the developer, I love him, says his desire is to keep Wallsburg the way it is. As much as anyone else, or maybe even more than anyone else, he would like to see it not change. But the very nature of his proposal dramatically changes. So I hope you would honor our desires and our requests of the existing residents of Wallsburg. Let's keep it the way it is. We're not trying to to deny anybody any rights that they have. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Boyd?
I have a question. You mentioned the number of residents, how many homes are really in Wallsburg?
I'm not sure exactly how many homes. There are probably about 700 residents total. There might be a few more than that.
There's just less than 300 homes in the valley right now.
Just under 300. So if their development is built out, it's already way bigger than most exist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, was that the committee then that wanted to speak? I would like to thank the committee. I think you've done a good job trying to bring this to a head, represent the citizens of Wallsburg, and make this work for all of you. And I think the committee has done a good job. You pat them on the back. It's not an easy proposition to come to such a large proposal as what's being proposed here. We don't think that we're going to solve all your problems tonight, so if some came here with that idea, I don't think that's going to happen. But I hesitate to open public comment because we closed it already. So if any of you do have comments, we would like to hear them in your writings. Send them to us. We'd like to go evaluate those. As you know, there'll be a meeting next week with the council on 21st, I believe that is. So we'll hear some of this again that night. Okay, I'm going to close that part of it, and I'm going to have a discussion with the commissioners now. Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Can I give a speech?
You can.
I've been able to serve on the committee and observe it for the last year, and I too want to comment and tell you how grateful we are for those of you that participated. It was done very conscientiously with a lot of hard work that was put in by many people. That's on the easiest committee, which is best for me anyway. I was a little worried tonight because you're all sitting on the back rows and thinking you were maybe in church, but I did want to make a couple of comments. One was that the committee did not consider the proposal that was put before that triggered this evaluation that they did. That did not enter into our consideration. Our consideration, as correct me if you see any difference, Doug, the consideration that the committee had was to sit down and think about what they wanted Wallsburg to be like, and to try to develop conditions in the master plan, reviewing the master plan, and much of it which is very good, and which they accepted wholeheartedly, but to add and subtract some things in there to make it so they could design a little bit how the town is going to turn out. This was not evaluation of the overlay zone that had been proposed and triggered this. It wasn't an evaluation of any proposal that had come in. It was simply an evaluation by the people as to what they wanted to have done in Midway. Wallsburg, what am I saying? I went through it in Midway, so that's what I realized. Yes, we already went through it once. I've been doing this about 20 years, so I want to give the citizens of Wallsburg some of my sage advice from an old man. If the fear that has been perpetrated in the proposal to make dramatic changes to Wallsburg comes to pass, it means that you will be inundated with developers. So I wanted to explain developers to you, and hope that I don't offend anybody, but in my experience, you'll find out in this life that there's three kinds of developers. The first kind are professional developers, and we've seen some review of that. Professional developers normally come into a community they'll either buy property or they'll associate themselves with somebody who has property. And then they'll go through every word of the code